Breaking news from the highest court in the land. And this one is shaking the entire nation. 10 brand new Supreme Court rules have just flipped everything gun owners thought they knew about police encounters. Departments are rewriting their training manuals overnight. Lawyers are scrambling to understand it. And for millions of responsible firearm owners, one wrong move could now mean handcuffs. Or worse. But here's the question every American needs to ask right now. If red and blue lights flash behind you tonight, do you actually know what you're legally allowed to say, do, or refuse? Because under these new rulings, ignorance isn't just dangerous. It could be deadly. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal could save your freedom, your rights, and maybe even your life. At number 10, the Silent Shield Protocol. This first rule is so explosive that legal experts are calling it a game changer. It gives every citizen a constitutional shield more powerful than most realize. And it starts with a single sentence. When an officer begins questioning you or overstepping, there's one phrase that acts like kryptonite to unlawful behavior. Officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, my Sixth Amendment right to an attorney, and I do not consent to any searches or seizures. Once you say those exact words, the law shifts in your favor instantly. Any confession they try to pull after that can be thrown out. Any evidence gathered can be suppressed. And if the officer keeps pressing after you clearly invoked your rights, the court now sees that as a constitutional violation under the new Martinez ruling. That single sentence has turned felony arrests into dismissals and wrongful detentions into six-figure settlements. It's not attitude, it's awareness. And now, every gun owner needs to memorize it like their life depends on it, because it just might. At number 9, the preemptive documentation strike. Imagine you're pulled over. Blue lights flash. Your pulse quickens. You know you've done nothing wrong. But what happens next depends on evidence you control. This rule is your legal insurance policy. It's called the Triple Documentation Protocol. And it takes only 3 taps on your phone. Start recording. Verbally timestamp the encounter. And identify witnesses in earshot. Say clearly, it's date and time. I'm being contacted by police at location. I'm legally licensed to carry, and I am recording for the safety of all parties involved. That 15-second statement could be the difference between freedom and a courtroom nightmare. The new Supreme Court guidance demands that courts review what happens in the first few seconds of an encounter, meaning your recording might prove your calm, your cooperation, and your constitutional awareness. Remember, facts fade, but footage speaks forever. At number 8, the Constitutional Carry Shield. Many think constitutional carry means you can simply walk armed without limits. But that misunderstanding has caused more tragedies than anyone admits. Even in constitutional carry states, officers can detain you only if they can point to specific suspicious behavior. Not just because you're carrying a firearm. That's why this phrase is your armor. Officer, I am legally carrying under state constitutional carry laws. I pose no threat to anyone, and I'm happy to cooperate within my constitutional rights. That last part, within my constitutional rights, draws the legal line. You're calm, you're respectful, but you're setting limits. If the officer claims, I need to secure that weapon for safety, the new ruling forces him to justify it with facts, not feelings. So if he can't explain why he feels unsafe, his actions cross from lawful policing into a constitutional violation. And now, under Martinez, that excuse doesn't hold up in court. At number 7, the Vehicle Fortress Defense. Your car isn't just transportation. Under the law, it's an extension of your home. This rule turns that car into a legal fortress. When police approach and you're armed, the next 30 seconds decide everything. Keep your hands visible, turn on your interior light if it's dark, and when asked, do you have any weapons in the vehicle? Respond with, Officer, I'm legally licensed to carry and currently armed. My firearm is secured and poses no threat, and I do not consent to any searches of my person or my vehicle. You've just revealed, neutralized, and legally protected yourself in one breath. No surprises, no panic. And remember, under Martinez, an officer can't search or seize simply because he feels unsafe. He needs articulable facts, something specific you did, not just the presence of a legal weapon. This one sentence keeps your rights intact and prevents your car from becoming a crime scene. At number 6, the Home Sanctuary Protocol. Your home is your castle, or at least it's supposed to be, but one wrong word at the door can turn that castle into a crime scene. If officers knock for a welfare check, a noise complaint, or vague investigation, your rights begin the moment they step on your porch. Here's the script that has saved countless Americans from unlawful entry. Officers, I see you at my door, but I am exercising my Fourth Amendment rights and do not consent to entry without a warrant. I am legally armed, and I'm happy to speak through the door or outside. The mistake people make? Opening the door wide and stepping back. Courts call that implied consent. The second you do it, they can walk right in. Instead, open just enough to speak or talk through the door. Calm, respectful, but firm. Because once they cross your threshold without a warrant, everything inside becomes fair game. Know the boundary. Protect your home. At number 5, the Miranda Activation Trigger. For decades, people thought Miranda rights started after arrest. That myth has destroyed lives. The truth is, your protection begins the moment an officer starts treating you like a suspect. If the tone changes, if questions become accusatory, if your movement feels restricted, if your legal firearm suddenly looks like evidence, that's the sign. You say, "Officer, I want to exercise my right to remain silent and my right to have an attorney present before answering any questions." Then stop talking. Not one more word. Don't explain why you're staying silent. Don't try to sound innocent. Silence is your safeguard. Because after the new ruling, the courts must respect that invocation. And anything the officer gets after that can be thrown out. In legal time, seconds count. So know when to hit that Miranda switch. At number 4, the movement narration defense. This one rule has literally saved lives. It's called movement narration, and it's how law-abiding gun owners make sure every gesture is seen for what it is: calm, controlled, and non-threatening. When you're armed, every movement matters. Police are trained to see sudden motion as danger, so narrate before you move. "Officer, I need to reach for my wallet in my back right pocket to get my license. Is that okay?" Wait for the nod. Move slowly. "I'm now reaching for my wallet with my right hand while keeping my left hand visible." This simple narration builds a timeline of calm behavior. One courts and cameras can clearly see. Under Martinez, judges must now review whether an officer ignored your verbalized movements before using force. It's not over-explaining, it's surviving. The difference between tragedy and testimony might be a few clear words. At number 3, the escalation recognition system encounters turn deadly not because people plan it, but because escalation sneaks in fast. Officers escalate in patterns, and recognizing them can buy you the seconds that save your life. Watch for these shifts: tone from calm to aggressive, requests turning into commands, hands drifting toward weapons, your rights suddenly being ignored. When that starts, you activate defensive compliance mode. Speak slower. Move slower. Keep sentences short and clear. Increase your verbal documentation, and use this exact line: "Officer, I can see this situation is becoming tense. I want both of us to be safe. I'm complying with all lawful orders within my constitutional rights." That last phrase, "lawful orders," forces a mental reset. It reminds the officer that not every demand is legal, and it creates a verbal record of calm restraint. You're not surrendering your rights. You're protecting them strategically. At number 2, the disclosure decision matrix. This rule might be the most misunderstood of all. When should you tell an officer that you're armed? Too early, and you might spark fear. Too late, and you risk disaster. The answer depends on your state's duty to inform law, but your delivery is everything. Never blurt, "I have a gun." That phrase triggers panic every time. Instead, speak with structure. Officer, I want to inform you that I am legally licensed to carry a concealed weapon and am currently armed. My firearm is secured on my right hip, and my hands will remain visible on the wheel. You've now told the truth, removed surprise, and shown you're in control. If the officer is calm, you stay calm. But if he's aggressive, disclosure can still protect you by preventing a surprise weapon discovery that escalates instantly. The key is reading the moment. Awareness over impulse. Always. At number 1, the Officer Safety Destruction Protocol. And here it is, the rule that shattered 5 decades of unchecked power. For generations, officers have used one phrase to justify nearly anything. For officer safety. It was their blank check, a phrase courts almost never questioned. But the Supreme Court just tore that check in half. In the landmark Martinez versus Thompson decision, the court ruled that officer safety must be based on specific, articulable, and objectively reasonable facts, not vague fear. The officer must now explain exactly what behavior justified his action, and whether a reasonable officer would have felt the same way. That means no more disarming a licensed carrier just because he had a gun. No more vague, "he made me nervous" excuses. Every act must have factual grounding. Officer, I understand safety is important, but I need you to articulate the specific behavior or circumstances that justify restricting my constitutional rights. If he can't, his actions become violations that courts can punish with dismissed charges, civil rights lawsuits, even criminal liability. The power dynamic just flipped. From blind trust to factual accountability. So these 10 new rules don't just rewrite legal textbooks. They rewrite survival. They draw a bright line between fear and freedom, chaos and control, obedience and awareness. But here's the chilling question. How many people will end up behind bars, or worse, simply because they didn't know them? If you're a gun owner, or you know someone who is, this isn't trivia. It's protection. It's the difference between walking home tonight or becoming the next viral headline of what went wrong. So before you put your keys in the ignition, before you answer that knock on the door, ask yourself, do you truly know your rights? Or just think you do? If this breakdown opened your eyes, don't just scroll past. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, and help protect your fellow Americans' constitutional rights. Because awareness saves lives. And tonight, it might have just saved yours.